Joining us live now from our Beirut studio is Rami Khouri from the American University of Beirut. First of all, let's just take it back to where this attack took place and the actual scene happening there. As we know, it's a Hezbollah stronghold. So how really was this car bomb able to get so close to where Hassan Nasrallah has his headquarters? Where was Hezbollah's security?
Well, they were all over the place. There's hundreds of security people all over that neighborhood, and cameras and all kinds of listening devices and things that keep it pretty safe usually. But it is a residential area. It's a very dense residential area full of 8, 10-story high apartment houses with shops and schools and just a really densely populated part of the city. Anybody can drive through. There are regular people, security people from Hezbollah who stop cars that are not familiar, and they ask them who they are. And foreigners who are there often get pulled over, and if they have a camera, they get questioned, etc., etc. So there is no total security on the street. Anybody can be on the street. There's cars, there's buses, there's taxis, there's delivery vans, and obviously one of these cars had a huge bomb in it. And this is not the first time it's happened. And if it's not a car, it's somebody firing a missile or a small rocket. So this is the problem with Hezbollah, is not the absolute security of its heartland. The problem is that it has become now an open protagonist in 2 conflicts, one within Lebanon and one within Syria. And those 2 conflicts have meshed into one. It's not just the Syrian conflict spilling over to Lebanon, it's also the Lebanese tensions spilling over to Syria, because Hezbollah is there fighting, supporting Assad, and Lebanese Sunni, Salafis, other people who are critical of Hezbollah, they have gone to Syria to fight against Hezbollah in Syria. So these 2 conflicts have really become one now, and this is a sign of that problem.
So perhaps you can help us understand why Hezbollah is so keen to go into Syria to help Assad forces, knowing full well that these repercussions could happen in response.
Well, Hezbollah feels that it can handle these kind of security threats. They will obviously learn the lesson of these last few incidents and adjust accordingly. They're very strong, very methodical, very systematic, very smart. They're strategic planners, they're efficient implementers. They will adjust somehow and beef up their security, perhaps isolating their own institutions more from the general public arena. But they feel that Syria is an existential ally to Hezbollah, because Syria is the geographical, the political, the ideological, and almost the psychological link between Iran and Hezbollah. And so the Iran-Syria-Hezbollah axis is a really powerful one that has been there for about 30 years or so, and Hezbollah cannot afford to let the Assad government fall. Syria may collapse as a country, but if the government and the army and the Alawites and the others who support Assad stay in power, then Hezbollah probably feels that its self-interests, political, military, storage, training, transit, whatever other things they do with Syria and Iran, those self-interests are preserved. So they stand, and the leader, Hassan Nasrallah, the leader of Hezbollah, said it openly, they will fight to beat back the threat against Assad. And they know that it's controversial. They know that people will fight back against them. They're prepared to do this. They are a resistance movement. That's what they do. They're a resistance movement. They resist Israeli occupation, they resist American hegemony, they resist conservative Arab threats and plots. All of the things that they see as threatening to them, they resist them, and this is how they do resistance.
But in this case, given the changing nature of the Syrian conflict, they're dealing with an unknown enemy, really, because nobody's heard of this group that targeted them today.
Well, yeah, these groups that crop up and claim responsibility, they're a dime a dozen, and you know, I watched that video, and it's 3 guys sitting in somebody's cleared out dining room, and they put up a banner with religious slogans behind them, and they seem to be dressed in sneakers and blue jeans and with white hoods, which is a new fashion model for these kind of groups. We've never seen that white hood before. So you don't know who these guys are. Their accent wasn't Lebanese particularly. You don't know where it came from. So the reality is that there are several groups that could be candidates to attack Hezbollah or to politically oppose it. They could be Lebanese Salafi groups, they could be Syrian opposition groups, they could be Israeli groups, as many in Lebanon now accuse the Israelis. They could be sponsored by conservative Arab regimes in the Gulf or somewhere else. Who knows? Could be sponsored by some foreign power even. We'll hear accusations, I'm sure, against some Western powers. The reality is that Hezbollah is no longer the sacred, untouchable, great symbol of the liberation of South Lebanon from years of Israeli occupation, because Hezbollah has now gotten much more directly involved in the fighting in Syria, and they were involved at the ground in Beirut in 2008, and they've lost a bit of that halo that they used to have.
Okay.
And more people oppose them and challenge them and even make fun of them sometimes politically as Iranian agents, Iranian puppets. And so this is the new dilemma, the new context in which Hezbollah is fighting politically as well as militarily, and people are fighting back against it.
Rami Khouri, very interesting to speak to you. Thanks for joining us there from Beirut.